Hello and welcome to the EdNews show. This is episode 2. Look at us. We're all the way to episode 2 already. I'm Kevin Richert. It's going to be a good episode. I'm looking forward to talking here with Sean Dolan, our reporter who's been doing some really fabulous reporting these past few weeks on a multi-million-dollar shortfall affecting a trust that handles employee benefits across school districts and charters throughout Idaho. And I can see you right now, viewers. You're thinking, health insurance trust, this is going to be really boring. Your eyes are glazing over. Trust us. This is an important story. This is going to affect benefits for teachers, school employees across the state. It's put school districts and charters across the state in a financial bind. Could affect taxpayers down the road. So there's a lot at stake here. And Sean has done some fabulous reporting to bring this all to light and to bring this all into context. So Sean, start with the basics here. What is the Idaho School Benefit Trust, and what does it do?
Yeah, so insurance, basically, you can think of it as a big pool of money. Mm-hmm. That's kind of what all insurance is. So essentially, school districts have different options. They can either go out on their own and have their own private plan where basically their employees are the pool. So like West Ada, Boise, some of the bigger districts, they have enough.
Such a pool of employees, they can go themselves.
So that's one option. Districts can also join the state plan, mm-hmm. which is under Regents Blue Shield.
Right.
And then there's the Idaho School Benefit Trust, which is the third-party administrator's Blue Cross of Idaho. So there's 108 member employers. So these are made up of school districts, charter schools, and there's a few education organizations like the Idaho School Board Association, the Idaho Education Association, things like that. So basically, these employers, they pay into this pool, and then this pool pays claims through Blue Cross of Idaho.
Okay.
And that's kind of what it is, and it's important to note that some vocabulary here, it is a self-funded insurance pool. So right now,
and that's changing.
As of September, It's going to become fully insured.
Okay, we'll get into why that's important.
Yeah, but being self-funded, that's kind of the issue right now. So basically, being self-funded, it means that the employer carries the risk. So if claims are super high, there's kind of no one else to pay it. Like the employer has to pay it. So if you're a big employer and you have $400 million in claims, you have to pay that much.
And that's where the trouble begins here, because there wasn't enough money in the pool to cover the claims, right?
Yeah. So basically, we learned we didn't really know this thing existed until mm-hmm. like a month ago. And this was when...
I remember we were sitting around the table like, what is this?
So we were trying to figure out what's going on. So things took a turn on July 14th. So that was when Debbie Hankey, she's the benefits manager for the Idaho School Benefit Trust. She sent this email out to all these 108 employers saying claims were extremely high over the past year, and that the trust had exhausted its reserves paying those claims, so there's no money left. And then, so over the past month or so, I've been talking to a lot of people about this, and I think the most common response I get is, I don't know what's going on. Mm-hmm. There's just a lot of people who want more answers, and they got some of those answers yesterday.
Right. So we know what the number is, we know what the shortfall is, and we know now what school districts and charters are going to have to come up with.
Yeah, so we got another, Debbie Hankey sent another email just yesterday, Thursday, around 4:30, and it basically said the shortfall is $13 million. And she cited Idaho Code and the participation agreements that all these employers signed. So basically saying this is backed up by law and these agreements that you signed. So the trust and its members are now responsible for covering this $13 million shortfall.
Okay.
There's kind of two options. They can pay a lump sum or monthly payments. and they have to make a decision by September 10th, and the first payment's due September 30th. That's kind of where we're at right now.
Okay. So we got this $13 million gap, but going back to how it got here, basically trust managers are saying claims were higher than expected, greater than expected. How much of a surprise could that really be, though? I mean, we all know what's going on in healthcare and healthcare costs. Nothing's dropping in costs here.
I think about when my first year as a reporter back in 2016, I was at the Herald Journal in Logan, Utah. I was looking at the city budget, and on the healthcare page, it said, healthcare costs are increasing at unsustainable rates. This was 10 years ago. It's been that they've had the same disclaimer every year. I just checked their budgets again. It's in this year's budget. So, yeah, everyone kind of knows that healthcare costs increase. I talked to a broker this morning who said over the past 7 years, there's been an average of 7 to 13% increase every year, rate increase. So the Idaho School Benefit Trust, like on their website, it says healthcare costs have continued to rise dramatically over the past decade. However, the ISBT has never had an annual increase above 10%. So they have essentially touted that they've kept their rates low. Mm-hmm. So everyone knows that rates are increasing. Earlier this month, Debbie Hankey at an Idaho School District Council meeting said, had anybody had a crystal ball and know that the claims are going to skyrocket the last few years, the trustees probably would have made different decisions. So that's kind of the question, like how much did they know?
And you've tried to pin down, okay, what are some of these skyrocketing claims that they've seen? What's driving this? Are there particular cases or trends or anything like that? And those answers have just not been.
Yeah, I don't really know.
Right. Yeah.
The trust says claims are extremely high, unexpectedly high. I don't really know what's going on there, to be honest.
So let's get down to how this affects people, and we'll start with school employees. I mean, if you're watching this, if you're a teacher and you're expecting a baby, by the way, if that's the case, congratulations. If you are dealing with sort of a chronic health issue and you're wondering what your benefit picture looks like, how might this affect teachers, employees who are working for schools that are on this trust?
Yeah. So like you're a teacher, any employee of like any organization, you get your Blue Cross card or your Regions card or whatever. You go to the doctor, you give them the card, they figure it out, they send you a bill. You don't really think about what goes on in the background. So I think it was like 2 days after Debbie Hankey informed members of this issue, Dean Cameron, he's the director of the Department of Insurance who has oversight. He emailed State Superintendent Debbie Critchfield and said, teachers and employees may not understand they are self-funded. They have a Blue Cross of Idaho card and think that it's guaranteed coverage. Basically, from what we know from yesterday, claims are going to be paid. So
Blue Cross is going to cover everything, at least.
I believe so. Mm-hmm. So there was some concern that claims were going to be delayed, but it seems like the trust has made an agreement with Blue Cross that the claims will be paid, but like the money has to come from somewhere. So this is a $13 million shortfall. Basically, school districts will have to make these payments. They've already negotiated benefits. So like in May and June, school districts negotiate with unions. Mm-hmm. They say, we're going to provide these benefits to you. They also pass budgets. So the districts have basically already agreed to provide these benefits at a certain rate. And then 2 weeks after the new fiscal year, they're told there's no money left. So it seems like their claims will be covered this year. Next year, employees might have to pay a lot more money.
Yeah, that's what I was kind of driving at here, is that benefits may not decrease right away, but premiums probably will increase because districts are going to have to come up with this money, this $13 million, and it's going to have to come from someplace. And like you say, they're having to decide this really on the fly in the middle of the start of the budget year.
Just after passing budgets. Mm-hmm. And, you cover the legislature, the past couple of years there's been like no increase in operational discretionary funding for schools. So costs keep going up every year for everything, food, gas, everything's going up. So districts are already pretty crunched, financially. Several districts have cut like 20 staff positions because they're dropping enrollment and all these different things. So, and now they have to come up with this money all of a sudden.
And that's where theoretically you could see a taxpayer impact, because a district looking at this need to come up with more money right now to help pay this $13 million, that district may have to cut back on services, or they may have to rethink how they spend a supplemental levy, or if they propose a supplemental levy, or even increase the supplemental levy proposal. So taxpayers could be on the hook here at some point.
Yeah, the other day I talked to Senator Janie Ward Engelking, Democrat from Boise, and she said there could be layoffs because of this. So she's been talking to like the Department of Education, Department of Insurance, superintendents, attorneys. So she's pretty clued into all this stuff, and she's been trying to figure out if this rainy day fund, the Public Education Stabilization Fund, PSIF, she's trying to figure out if the state can use that. At this point, doesn't seem like it. I haven't heard any indication that could happen.
I mean, it would require the legislature deciding to tap into that fund, and, impossible to say where we're going to be in January with the session, and what the sentiment at the State House might be about that.
So the governor's office, in a statement to us, made it kind of clear that the trust is a private organization, and it's up to local decision makers what's going to happen. So based on that statement, it doesn't seem like there could be like this state bailout.
You kind of alluded to this a little bit, so I'm kind of looping back to talking about premiums and the trust kind of priding itself on keeping these premiums low. I mean, this is a competitive climate here. I mean, we've had a push at the state level to try to encourage districts and charters to join the state insurance plan. As you mentioned, that's a competitor. I mean, and some districts have done that. Some districts have decided not to. Some have stayed with the trust. Some have gone with third parties or gone it alone, like you talked about. I mean, there's a pressure here to try to keep those premiums low, and maybe that's part of why the trust is $13 million upside down at this point.
Yeah. So just kind of some background on the state plan part of this. So it was back in 2022, the legislature passed House Bill 443 that created a fund to basically help school districts join the state plan. So you have to buy in.
Right.
It's
a pretty big buy-in for a lot of districts.
Yeah. So some superintendents I've talked to, it would cost for one district $400,000 to buy in. Superintendent said we didn't see where we could swing that. For Coeur d'Alene, the superintendent, Sean Hawker, said it would cost $6 million to join. He said there's no way to do that in our budget situation today. The state's plan never became a viable conversation for us. But going back to kind of this competition, like healthcare is a business. These companies have to make a profit, so there's kind of this battle for market share. The trust, I could say one Senator Ward Engelking kind of alluded to that the trust had kept these rates low to keep members in.
Right.
So I think that's kind of fair to say at this point. And I heard that at the Idaho School District Council meeting earlier this month. One of the trustees said, and the council oversees the Idaho School Benefit Trust. They appoint the trustees, so it's kind of this parent organization in a way.
Okay.
But this trustee said the Benefit Trust heard these cries of poverty from school districts and kept rates low. So yeah, there definitely was this competition to keep rates low and to compete with these other providers, basically.
So how are districts and charters responding to this right now? I mean, you talked about July 14th, they get this email saying that they are probably going to be on the hook to have to pay more to cover this shortfall. And we found out on Thursday how much they'll have to pay. And like you talked about, I mean, this happens in July, start of a new budget year for schools. They have just completed contract negotiations with teachers' unions that just set their budget for the new year. How are they reacting at this point, and are any districts defecting from the trust?
Yeah, so this came as a surprise to pretty much everybody.
Right.
Like, so the things that I've heard from multiple people is that everybody believed in this trust. Like, it's been around for a long time. It has so many members. They have actuaries that assess the financial risk. They have oversight from the Department of Insurance. They have the trustees. There's 5 trustees. Most of them are retired superintendents, so they know school business. So what I've heard is that this was a shock to everybody, and they've just been waiting for the other shoe to drop, basically to hear how much the shortfall is.
So now that that number is out and the bill is due, starting in September.
We just got this email yesterday at like 4:30. So this morning I called like 16 school districts on a Friday morning in a state where like 77 districts are on a 4-day week. So I was able to talk to one guy, one superintendent. I talked to Jim Foudy from Blaine County School District. And so this kind of adding to the confusion of all this. So we got the list of all these members, there are 108 members from the Department of Insurance, and Jim Foudy was the second superintendent I've talked to who said no, who was on the list, and then I called him and he said, no, we're not part of, we don't use it for medical insurance. So at this point I'm not sure if the list we have is really correct, or if so that's another fun piece of this puzzle.
But you do know there's at least one school district we were talking about off camera, about Kimberly.
Yeah, so just kind of going through the timeline here. So districts received the rate increase for the upcoming benefit year. It's September 1st is when the benefit year starts. So districts got notice of the rate increase in April, like late April, and it was a 19.5% increase. So all these years of 6%, 9%, and then all of a sudden.
And that's separate of the 13 million, right? Or is that part of the 13
Well,
million?
In addition to,
okay.
yeah.
All right.
So basically in late April, these districts heard this. So in Kimberly, they saw this and they were like, that's a lot of money. Let's look for alternatives. So they're kind of a smaller district. So they went out and found a private plan through Select Health. So they are not going to be part of the trust in the new benefit year. Again, in Coeur d'Alene, they saw the 19.5%, and they were like, well, that really sucks, but what are we going to do? So they decided to renew for the new year. And there is some comfort in this coming benefit year because it will be fully insured. And so just going back to these kind of definitions, self-funded insurance, the employer carries the risk. In a fully insured plan, the insurance provider carries the risk.
So in this case, it would be Blue Cross assuming the risk. So
like I was saying, if a self-funded employer has $400 million in claims, they have to pay that. If all these school districts have that much, then Blue Cross will pay all of it, basically.
But when the insurer assumes the risk, they're not doing that in a vacuum. I mean, it's going to translate into premium increases for districts, charters.
19.5%.
Okay.
That's what we're seeing, yeah.
So, I mean, you talked about the Department of Insurance. You alluded to them. Dean Cameron is the director of the Department of Insurance. Very familiar name to a lot of listeners, viewers, longtime legislator, longtime co-chair of the Joint Finance Appropriations Committee. He was director of health and welfare for some time. Now he's director of Department of Insurance. He was an insurance agent in his prior life, as a citizen legislator. You've talked to him at some length about this over this process. Walk us through kind of how the insurance department, this regulatory department, is viewing the situation.
Yeah, so the Department of Insurance, basically they exist to protect consumers. In this case, the consumers are the teachers who are on the benefit trust. So that's their main goal. So basically, if an insurance company says, hey, they make a promise, hey, we're going to provide these benefits, the Department of Insurance exists to make sure that is a promise kept. So in this case, their oversight is just doing exactly that to make sure that the teachers who have their Blue Cross of Idaho card, who are on the benefit trust, they're doing whatever they can to make sure that they have benefits.
So that teacher who's having a baby, that teacher who's got an ongoing health issue, they're
Yeah.
going to be kept whole through this turbulence.
I think so.
That's the goal. I mean, that's the objective of the insurance department.
Yeah.
Basically, that's what they're there for.
Yeah. And then so there's kind of, this question of, I think a lot of people are wondering, like, who knew what and when, and why weren't school districts informed earlier? So when I spoke to the Department of Insurance the first time, maybe late July, they saw this audit from August 2025, and Eric Fletcher, he's the chief examiner, he said it showed catastrophic scales of loss. So that's when it started to raise red flags. They couldn't act on that until February. The audit had to be finalized. So basically, in my understanding, February is when the department really knew that this was an issue and when they started to act on this.
So you get a major red flag from the audit. I mean, catastrophic is a pretty heavy term to see in an audit.
Yeah, and I just want to make it really, really clear about. So, like in my stories, we've said, at the end of 2024, they had a $2.1 million fund balance. So, all we have is the Form 990 that all nonprofits are required to file and make available to the public. So I just want to be really clear that these are tax years we're talking about. So a tax year runs from, tax year 2024, that's September 1st, 2024 through August 31st, 2025.
Okay.
So, yeah, I just want to be clear about that. So when we say tax year 2024, that's pretty far into 2025.
Yeah.
So, and in this tax year, the trust saw, they lost $9 million basically in tax year 2024, which just ended basically a year ago. So they went from, tax year 2020, they had a $22.5 million fund balance. Then they lost $5 million one year, $2.4 million the next year, $3.9 million the next year, and $9 million the next year. So
kind of an ongoing erosion of that fund balance.
Yeah, and so that's kind of the question that we have right now is certainly the trustees of the Idaho School Benefit Trust, they saw these numbers. I've been able to talk to one trustee before. He told me that he had to terminate the call. And this is Galen Smyer. And I asked him, didn't you guys see these numbers? He said, we saw the decline, yes, and we were taking steps to address it, but we did not anticipate the utilization that occurred. He said they thought they were navigating their way through it, and that it was a combination of really high claims and districts that had left the trust. So the pool was shrinking.
Okay.
If a district leaves, there's fewer members, the pool grows smaller.
Especially if you were to lose a bigger district that has, that's contributing more into the pool. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and the timing of this, the trustees saw this. The Department of Insurance ostensibly knew in February that there were issues. I think the question that a lot of school districts have is why they weren't informed before they went and negotiated benefits and passed their budgets. I think a lot of superintendents and school district trustees would have liked to have that information.
Mm-hmm. So where does the Department of Education fit into this whole thing? Where Debbie Critchfield, where does she fit into it, her staff? Because, this is potentially a political issue going into an election year. I mean, Critchfield is up for re-election. Democrat Becky Sundin Mitchell has kind of taken to task how this has been handled. I mean, talk a little bit about what we're hearing from Critchfield's office, what we're hearing from the Department of Education.
So I just on Monday, I was talking to the department's spokesperson, Andrea Dearden, and we were about something else, and I asked her if she knew anything about the trust. She was like, we don't know. So basically, just after in mid-July, when Debbie Hankey sent out the email, the state superintendent, Debbie Critchfield, sent out another email and said, just want to reach out to say, we are informed of the issues. They're working with the governor's office, Department of Insurance. And basically, it seems like Debbie Critchfield just wanted to make everyone aware that she knew what was happening. And they were learning the details and they have questions themselves. So, I'm not really sure where the Department of Education really fits into all this, but mentioning kind of the politics. So this is an election year. Debbie Critchfield is up for election in November. She's facing Democrat Becky Sundin Mitchell. She has posted on social media.
Mitchell.
Yep, Sundin Mitchell. Teachers across Idaho, including educators at my own school, were warned that the depletion of the Idaho School Benefit Trust would lead to higher insurance costs, forcing school employees to shoulder more of the expense, or requiring districts to cut other critical budget items to absorb the increases. The current administration let their people down when they knew of the impact. We deserve better. So that was just like a social media statement from the Democrat challenger.
But to some degree, it sounds like the education department is kind of watching and maybe to some degree deferring to the insurance department, which is more of where a lot of this kind of falls into the bailiwick of the insurance department, really, more than the education department.
It seems to be the case. Yeah. So I'm not totally sure what the role of the Department of Education is at this point.
So what has this story been like to cover over these past few weeks? I mean, I've overheard some of your conversations. I've been reading the stories, and I've been struck by a lot of folks really not wanting to talk about this. I mean, maybe my favorite quote in this whole thing was Debbie Hankey saying, "I'm not going to talk to you anymore because you're going to quote everything that I say." She's not talking. Blue Cross has not talked. There are a lot of answers that you're trying to get. And also a lot of folks who you would think would be in the loop on this, who would be subject matter experts on this, are really kind of in the dark about this. I mean, what has that been like covering this story, trying to unravel this story?
Yeah, it's kind of like putting a puzzle together without knowing all the pieces. And a lot of people, I've called up a superintendent and say, hey, what do you know about this? And they're like, well, we were hoping you would tell us. Yeah, I've learned a lot. I've learned all this new vocabulary about insurance. The broker I talked to this morning says there's a whole language of insurance, and I feel like I've learned some of that language. But a lot of the superintendents, this might, choosing an insurance company to go with or a plan, it might just be a few hours of discussion. And then, superintendents have so many different things to deal with that they might not be fully immersed in this. And they have brokers. Most of them have brokers who will lay things out and explain the level of risk and all these different things.
And kind of the default position. I mean, it's human nature to just look at what you have right now and just kind of stick with it unless you've got a really compelling reason to change.
Mm-hmm.
So
it's I guess been a little bit challenging, but just keep making more phone calls and just talk to as many people as I can, really.
Well, you've done a great job of demystifying this story and staying on top of this story. I'm sure we'll be talking about it more. I'm sure we'll be writing more about it. Just a sense of where the story goes from here, maybe quickly. I mean, what should we be keeping our eyes out for?
Yeah. So September 10th, I mean, was that less than a month, 3 weeks or so now? So the next thing I'm going to be doing is, like I said, I called 16 school districts, talked to one person, probably just, I mean, I really want to know how districts are going to pay this. I mean, if you take 13 million divided by 108, it's like 120,000 or something like that, I think, which is a lot of money.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah,
And
they've
kind of
just
depending
passed
on the
these
district and
budgets.
charter, what kind of financial shape they're in, what kind of fund balance they may have. I mean, it could hit some districts harder than others.
Yeah, it's a big shock. There's a lot of people surprised. A lot of people have been freaked out by this. Again, this is a thing that's been around for a while. You know, most superintendents understood that there was risk in this, but they felt so comfortable, maybe complacent, because there were all these safeguards in place.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it almost feels like it was too big to fail. Like, no one saw this coming.
Well, Sean, thank you for sitting down and walking us through this and helping listeners and viewers understand this thing a little bit better. And we'll be watching for the next chapters to come.
Thanks.
And thank you for joining us for this edition of the EdNews Show. We'll be back probably in a couple weeks with another edition. In the meantime, if you like what you're seeing, or if you have suggestions, requests, comments, feedback, if there are topics you would like to see us take on in future episodes, we'd love to hear from you. Until then, I'm Kevin Richert. Take care.